Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you've had a great day. What are we now? Day 2 of the conference. My name is Alex. I'm going to be moderating this session. And in my day job, I work for Rajesh Jha, who's the EVP of Microsoft 365, essentially. He's the engineering leader across Teams, Windows, SharePoint, OneDrive, all that sort of stuff. So today I'm moonlighting, and I get to sit down with these 4 Teams leaders. And I thought we'd start off with hopefully an easy question. You're going to have to share, which, you know, the Teams leadership team, they're a very tight leadership team, so I feel confident in your ability to share 2 mics between 4.
But we're fight for resources,
there we go.
So
Perfect.
We're used to it.
Is it on? Great. So let's start off with an easy one. Sumi, let's go down the line. Introduce yourself briefly and what you do on the team.
Hi, my name is Sumi Singh. I'm the Corporate Vice President for Teams Core Engineering. And what that contains is a lot of the async collaboration that happens in Teams via chat, channels, and search, and as well as all of the shared pieces around the app, the UX framework, and all of our mobile clients and web clients, Mac clients, as well as a lot of shared infrastructure work around services, dev infra,
so all of the plumbing.
All of the plumbing, that's it. And I'm the engineering, just to be clear, I'm the engineering peer for that because Manik over there will be my PM peer.
Well, also, and before we go any further, I'd like to point out that I actually wrote their names down and put them on the chairs. And they've already failed because they're not sitting in the chairs that I'd already put them on.
I sat on my chair.
Oh, well, I'm not going to call people out, but...
The pages
These guys don't follow instructions.
Yeah. Lan, go ahead.
All right. My name is Lan. I run the Teams calling, meeting, and devices group, PM and engineering. A lot of you here are first-time customers and partners to this conference in our unified communication industry. I've been in this industry for 7, 8 years, I think. Yeah. So a lot of you have been with us on this journey for a long time, so we appreciate it. This is the first time a lot of you are also coming to M365 conference. We're very excited. First time for me as well, so looking forward to the session.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mark Swift. I manage design and research for a couple of different products. So I look after all of Teams. So I cover this crew of folks and help support them. But I also look after SharePoint, which is obviously a big thing at this conference, OneDrive, and Planner. So I see myself as collaboration. Like, I really do capture conversations, people, content, meetings, and so it's a super exciting time with AI, disrupting how we think about collaboration in the workforce going forward.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks, everyone, for coming to the conference and also to this session. Really appreciate it. I am a CVP, Corporate Vice President for Product Management and Data Science on Teams Core. So essentially, Sumi's counterpart, the product counterpart on she runs engineering, I run PM. And we look after, as she was saying, we look after all the async chat and channels experiences, but also a lot of other growth bets, like how do we grow Teams usage in other segments, like frontline workers, SMBs, consumers, and we also have a platform that third-party developers and line of business apps can be built on top of Teams. So, that's the underlying set of product initiatives that I lead.
Questions so that people can get to know you a little bit, and then we're going to get into the topic of today. So, first off, dark or light mode? Just keep them on the whole time.
Light mode.
Wait, no, I don't understand your British accent. Sorry, Alex, can you repeat your question?
Dark or light mode?
Oh, dark mode.
Oh.
No.
System.
System. Okay, good.
Dark mode as a system setting.
All right. Chat or email?
Chat.
100% chat.
What is email?
You have your answer. So
I was just testing, making sure that we had the actual Teams leaders here. And the last one, are you a meetings person or an async person? Asynchronous?
a combination of both, I guess.
You like both?
I like both.
All right.
I need to like both because there's just no way I can attend all of the meetings
Fair
that I have to be in.
Both. I meet profusely, I write profusely in chat, so too.
All right.
It depends on the topic.
Or depends on who the meeting's
Yes,
with.
exactly. But generally, it's a combination.
Yeah, it's the same. I mean, that's what Teams does, so that's what we do.
All right, so
Except we don't email, but we don't Everything else.
Chat and meetings together, yeah.
Very, very diplomatic. All right. The session is called Collaboration at Scale, and so a lot of the questions are going to be designed to sort of tease out what it means to run a platform that is, so pervasive and broadly used. And so, Lan, we're going to kick off with you, and speaking of that growth, and you mentioned you've been in this sort of in this area for 7-8 years, and here we are, Teams over 320 million monthly active users, which has just sort of grown explosively. What were some of the points along the journey that got us to today?
I think first point is September 2019. I remember that vividly because we built 2 years, spent two very intensive years building Teams to the point where we can achieve Skype for Business parity. We declared, we've achieved the parity customer, we're ready for you to migrate. And everybody had a moment of relaxation and collapsing. We all pat each other on the back and say, whoo, we're largely over the hump. And that was, remember, September 2019. And so that's moment number one. I was feeling very good about it. And then January 2020, COVID hit, and we all of a sudden found ourselves in the situation where we've got countries after countries want to get on board to Teams, and every day there's like millions of users want to get on Teams, and at that time we were only double-digit millions, and so COVID was definitely I would say unfortunate but also really epic moment for Teams. We had in some segments, we had 60x growth in a matter of 6 and 8 months, and that really had transformed a lot of our customers here, transformed the Teams as well. Another moment, and then I would say the most recent moment was we've worked on this even during pandemic. My team has been working on AI, and even as early as GPT-2 or BERT, for those of you who are in the field knows. But we were working on this meeting summary feature for a long time, and we were like, okay, this thing is probably 10 years away. AI is not quite there, but we should work on it. And even though it's pretty crappy, and then the next thing GPT DV3 at that time it's called, right, arrived. And I remember had an existential crisis moment when I saw this thing, play with it, and was like, whoa, this is a whole different ballgame. But anyway, so this was sort of the AI moment was also very memorable because it really started to make us think, a lot of these hard problems that we've been trying to solve for many years, that was not possible, and now it becomes possible. Yeah. And that opens up a whole new window of opportunity. That was another whole different moment.
It's fair. So my takeaway there is you had the pre-COVID launch, getting to parity.
Yeah.
We're ready.
Yeah.
Thank goodness we were ready.
Well, we weren't exactly ready, but yeah, I mean, we were ready for Skype for Business customer to move to Teams, right? But we weren't ready for the kids,
For the entire world to
we weren't even designed for 6-year-olds joining classes from home, and then COVID came.
Yeah, totally. And I imagine at the same time that came with, on the engineering system side, sort of scaling, Lan lots and hands the microphone to Sumi.
No, I wasn't there at that time.
But you're in Office 365,
yes,
so
yes.
I think that it's interesting, obviously Teams had its explosive growth, but at the same time, and this is something that's interesting because Mark, you talked about, you scale across, OneDrive, SharePoint, et cetera. The broader team at Microsoft that this group sits on is called Collaborative Apps and Platforms. It's not just the Teams team. It's the group that sort of makes all of those sort of experiences. So yes, you might have been in Office at the time, but I think you probably have some reflections on that scaling moment and what had to happen from an engineering systems perspective.
Well, I actually just want to add to one thing that Lan missed out, which goes to the scale, is the week before kind of COVID really started gaining momentum, Jeff Teeper at the time sent us all a note saying, hey, we're going to go home for a week to test the resilience and scale of our system, see if there's anything else that we need to think about. And then we never went back into the office.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And so we were like...
So you had a week...
dinner.
Yeah, we were scrambling and we were like testing to see whether we were ready.
Yeah.
And yeah.
But okay, that's an interesting... We'll come back to the engineering system. In that first week, had you already started to identify things that...
Yeah.
Go.
Identify things. What we identify a lot of things.
Yeah. What were some of the examples that you remember?
Well, we have customers in, for example, Saudi Arabia, right?
Yeah.
And those, like the entire MOE, Ministry of Education, came to us and say, well, our school is going to start in 2 weeks, and we have 6 million kids that needs to get on. Can you support us? And we didn't even have enough Azure
compute
hardware, like the network pipe, right, going into the EMEA region. And
it's not just you that has to pay for Azure. These guys have to pay for Azure
have
too.
We mean, at one point, we were 27% of our Azure CPO. Like, that's how much people are on Teams. But the challenge was at that point.
That was before Teams 2.0, twice as fast, half the resources.
That's true. We could have only taken 13%, but.
And we come back to engineering systems.
Yes, we should come back to engineering system. But the thing was just, it was really a true testimony of Microsoft, right? Because it's not just the Teams. It's like, it's Azure services, which has a lot of EM and CPU. But also, guess what? You need network capacity that going into egress and ingress out of the region, and we weren't.
Yeah.
So we had to send people to local to lay pipes, right? Get the bandwidth from the local carrier providers, all within a matter of just a couple days and max weeks, and we were able to get the MOE of Saudi Arabia. When it was like Valentine's Day, their school started, and we were like, whew, okay, we got all these kids on at least, That was memorable.
I can imagine, and it's funny, you sometimes forget about, we're talking in abstract about scale, and I said 320 million monthly active users, when it makes it real when you think, oh, that's 6 million children who are able to sort of go to school, or, when, heaven forbid, there is a service-impacting event. I know, American Airlines has delayed flights, or, it makes it very, very real. So Sumi, take us through some of your journey and on engineering systems from both Office and now in Teams.
So there's a lot of things that are quite similar in my journey, scaling out Office 365. And for folks who, just for your awareness, so I ran the fundamentals and growth part of Office 365, and that involved a lot of the same underlying services and systems and infrastructure. And when you are running planet-scale products like Office, like Teams,
Windows.
Windows, right? There are certain things that are just, the fundamentals of security and reliability. I mean, those just have to be world-class. You don't get a pass on that, right? Like, there's just the insane amount of focus and obsession on that. It's just like, you've got to, and that's very, very similar in both places on Office 365 as well as Teams. The other part is, as part of doing this, is you're also satisfying the needs of such a diverse set of users. Like, 320 million in Teams is, I've lost count now what it is in Office, but it's even more.
Well, we publicly say over 400 million commercial customers.
Commercial customers, and there's close to, I think, 79 consumer customers. So it's like, and
Jeff just yesterday shared over 1 billion,
SharePoint users, exactly. And so when you're building products for such a diverse set of customers across the world, you have to satisfy all their needs. You have to do it in a very simple way. You have to be simple by default, but powerful on demand as needed for our customers. And so some of those things are just like, lessons that carry over. I learned it the hard way.
Yeah.
I used to work on Word. I used to work on Publisher in my early days. And that's when I realized like how one single character could pretty much break Morgan Stanley in the Far East region. So those things are you just build all of the right guardrails. You just build all of the right systems, processes. You don't just write code. You build all the right guardrails and processes to ensure that you don't bring these things down, right?
And so with Teams being so sort of, broad, you got the calling, meeting, devices, the first line worker, all of those sort of different things, whereas Office, it's just Office. It sounds like you're saying it's relatively similar across the two.
So there are definitely some of these things that are similar. So like the focus on, as I said, the fundamentals, focus on accessibility, user experience, all of that is similar.
Safe deployment.
It's safe deploy. The way we take code out, we bring code out, we have shift left as far as possible to find the bugs as early as possible. Those are very similar. But then teams, coming to teams, there are differences. First and foremost, teams is a real time. There's both async, but there's also this very real time nature of the product. It is daily use and daily habit. Office is something you'll open a document
To do something very
and then you're
specific.
done, right? You might not open that same doc. You might not open Word for a few days after that. It all depends on what you. It's not that all the time daily use habit. Whereas Teams is a hub. You start your day with Teams, you end your day with Teams. The kinds of issues, problems, and the scale that you have to do with Teams is very, very different. There are issues that won't show up in other products that will show up in Teams just because of the amount of time our product is running, the app is running. So memory issues, power issues, battery issues. If you've done a lot of meetings on your phone, you know what happens.
Yeah.
The kinds of scaling and
Intensity
intensity of the usage has necessitated a very different scale of fundamentals around that, right? How we do memory. We have gone deep. We can't just say, oh, we call the operating system API or we call this API and be done.
Just
with
like a
it.
normal ISV.
We have to go very, very deep and fine tune and customize and talk to our partners in other part of the orgs. Same with Azure, right?
Yeah.
It's not just enough. Yes, we use Azure.
I love
but
these
it's-
examples where, because I know Teams has done work like right down to sort of the Windows kernel, to sort of optimize. And this is, in Jeff's keynote yesterday, he started with this sort of framing, which, and this is where I was moonlighting, helping Jeff on the keynote, and he showed the strategy slide that I created. Well, I didn't create it. Rajesh, all of our boss, created it. And it was that security and fundamentals. And he talked more about security because we had the security keynote. But I love that you're taking this sort of focus of fundamentals, which is sort of reliability, sustainability.
Sustainable, enduring. It has to be enduring. It's also something that you can't keep fighting those fires every day. You're going to burn the team out.
Totally.
So one of the big things with teams, I think during the pandemic, it was such a race to catch up with features and everything, and that was what was needed. But once you've kind of reached some sort of steady state, how do you keep it going so that every day is not a fire?
I think it's also safe to say that Teams is the world's most complex and biggest Chromium app, right?
Yeah.
And
Hybrid
web app that works. So there's no other apps out there that gets the kind of intensity of usage in it. And we had to do a lot of innovations in the space because, like, even from engineering systems and memory tracking, latency tracking, end-to-end, all that, there's just isn't tools like that can. It was nasty to be able to track down memory leak for an app like this.
And we actually, if I'll add,
I
we
have
actually
to
went
let
and
the
built.
boys speak at some
I
point.
know. Sorry.
Go ahead.
So I'll just
Tell
end with
about
that.
the engineer.
We actually went and built tooling for that, which we've put back into the Chromium code base. We've put it in the edge, so that, yes.
Contributing to the community.
Contributing back to the system.
Amazing.
The ecosystem.
One of the things that you said that I thought was interesting was you talked about the diversity of the customers that we have. And Mark, that sort of made me think of you because you're sort of thinking about the design across so many of these systems, and you're having to think about these different users. So how do you think about that from a design perspective, balancing sort of the innovation side of things with, inclusion, reliability, those sort of challenges?
Yeah, actually, similar to what Lam mentioned about the different milestones, there was different phases along the team's journey where we kind of pivoted from a customer perspective, where at the very beginning, if you look at every team, every organization, they're all completely different. How you think about a team in a legal firm is different to how you think about it in an architect's firm. And so when we first released Teams, it was very much about trying to meet everyone where they work and being very generic in the sense of like trying to meet the needs of everyone.
Yep.
And then when the pandemic happened, we then suddenly had to repivot to education suddenly became really important, working from home. And so the rise of like meeting capabilities, we completely shifted our strategy, the features that we were going after, the prioritization. And then after the pandemic, now we're getting to a phase where we can be a lot more targeted. So we're looking at FLWs, SMBs.
First-time workers.
We're we're also looking at developers and looking at disciplines, like how can we make the developer workflow in teams be a lot more productive and help them be a lot more connected to their tools where their conversations are happening. And so for me, when I think about design at scale, it comes down to three things. Like obviously, customer empathy is number one. The second one is around inclusive design. Like you design for one person and it has benefit to everyone. And then the third one, which doesn't get talked about that much, is coherence and familiarity. And that means what you see today in Teams, OneDrive is the files experience. Mm-hmm. Outlook, Calendar has a lot of the shared controls. And so we build it once, build that familiarity, so it enables the teams to be free and innovate a lot quicker because we're not competing and we're not building the same experiences. So as users bounce through the M365 experience, there is that familiarity. But yeah, going back to the customer empathy, our research team has a ton of very targeted programs where we have customer panels and customer groups that fit into these different segments. And now that we can start to make teams go from this generic hub for teamwork to be very targeted and focused. And then for those that are interested in inclusive design, Microsoft really heavily invests in accessibility, inclusive design. We have a ton of guidelines and toolkits available to the public that helps you take workshops into your workforce. And so I encourage you all to have a look at that, download it, explore it. Awesome. So yeah, those three things really.
I appreciate it. So recap those, just the three for us.
So customer empathy, inclusive design, so design for one, but it has benefit for all, and then building coherent and familiarity into our experiences so our users don't have to learn every time they try something else within the Microsoft ecosystem.
It's funny, I'm glad that you touched on accessibility there, because I think that's one of the things that what I've learned about the way we build for accessibility is it might be something that's going to help someone who has a vision impairment, but it turns out that by making the high, I did this literally yesterday in a Teams meeting. I turned on the high contrast. We were using PowerPoint Live, and I turned on high contrast because I could then read it from while I went away and made a coffee. Yeah. So you build these things for accessibility, but it turns out like we all benefit from it.
Yeah, and so the way that we think about it is what you described is there's permanent disability. So if someone has a lack of hearing or is deaf, and so then you have temporary. Oh, I have an ear infection, and so I can't hear out of one ear today. And then you have situational, which is I'm in a loud room that's super noisy. And so again, like if you design for that outcome of like people permanent, it helps for the room that's in a busy environment. And so if you look at the meetings experience, it generates things like noise suppression and voice isolation. And captions. And so again, it's like you design for one case and then you expand that out so it has benefit to everyone.
The noise suppression, if I had to, like, just in my time, like, it's just amazing. I mean, it is like magic.
Yeah, and I think people talk about when you take away features and people complain, you've got something there. Yeah. There's a similar thing where if you build a feature that people forget's there, it's also quite, because I'm in loads of calls where people say, oh, can you hear my dog bark in the background? And it's like, no, we can't. And you forget that it's working. And it's pretty amazing when technology is transparent like that.
Totally. I have a Sonos speaker, like literally I can put my hand on it from my desk. And I normally just have music going like all day long in the background. No one can tell, like on the Teams meetings. I mean, it's truly remarkable.
Apart from the nodding and dancing.
Yeah. you do not want to see me dance. Moving on from that very quickly, Manik, you've had quite a diversity of experience at some of these very large-scale, companies in the industry. And we were chatting just beforehand. Joined us about 3.5, years ago. How would you say that notion of sort of scale? Is it the same as some of those other larger companies you've worked at, or different?
It's a really interesting question. I was thinking about that. So I think it's very similar in the sense that I think Sumi mentioned this. We are, even at Microsoft, when we look at Teams or other products, we're really working on planet-scale problems. So these are not, small issues to go after. These are fundamental challenges in society today in terms of how people can collaborate better, how they can save themselves time, how they can save teams time, all of that. So I think that there's a very strong mission orientation in this company, which really leads us to focus on problems that are very high scale. So I think in that case, it's very similar to I've worked at Google, I've worked at Uber, so it's very similar in that sense. But one thing I've also particularly appreciated even more in the last 3.5 years that I've been is that you can go after scale, but you can go after that scale in very different ways. And I actually really like the way Microsoft goes about it because the emphasis on trust is very important at Microsoft. And I keep talking to my team about this. Microsoft runs on trust. And one example that I would like to talk about is, I think this was a year in my job at Microsoft, and I was in a meeting where there was a discussion on some customer who was still running a very old version of Internet Explorer, right? Back, like a really small team that's still relying on Internet Explorer. And our EVP at that time, Rajesh, right, he mentioned, like somebody was saying we should just deprecate that and so on. And Rajesh was like, okay, have we talked to the customer? Are we ready to deprecate?
Yeah.
What are they doing? How are we supporting them? And in the past companies that I worked at, that would never have happened, right? We would have just made the call. So I really appreciate the way we go after scale in our own unique way at Microsoft with trust sort of underpinning all of that. I think that's a critical part of it. And then the second thing I'll say is it's also a little bit different between enterprise customers and consumers.
Yeah.
Right? There's a big delta over there in terms of how you build product there's not a big delta. Ultimately, enterprise customers are end users, so you build the product the same way. But I've also come to appreciate in the last few years the aspect of compliance and security.
Yep.
So important, right? Because all of us work in companies, different companies, and it's so important to have the right security posture, the right compliance posture, because at the end of the day, the companies are required to safeguard that data for their customers.
Yep.
So that's another very important learning for me in terms of how the difference, in terms of going after the same scale, but going after that in a slightly different, more unique, differentiated way.
It's almost, it's unapologetically sort of focused on the end user, recognizing that you're serving both commercial and consumer, and so there's a very different sort of balance there than if you're a pure commercial or pure consumer trying to get into commercial.
I think so, and my personal view on this is that the way you build the product and the design sensibility that Mark was talking about, and the fundamentals that we were talking about earlier, so and Lan were talking about, that doesn't change in my view. Like between consumers, commercial customers, any customer segment that you serve, you gotta get those right, because at the end of the day, those are humans, they're end users,
totally.
right? But yes, there are some additional, differences that come in, and the way you go about it, the way you deploy them, the way you can track adoption, all those are different techniques for different segments. But we are still building products for end users at the end of the day.
So let's talk about those end users a little bit more. And I'm worried if we come back down here, we're never going to get back to you, Manik. So I'm going to stick with you for a second. Manik, I'm sort of interested in you from a sort of PM perspective. Like, how are you thinking about AI and what it means for your PMs, and then what we're building for those end users?
Yeah, I'll cover the second part first. So, all the AI investments, and I'm sure you folks saw a lot of that this week. I kind of put them into
some, maybe just a couple.
I hope you did. I think we had lots of sessions on this, but I think there are like 4 different buckets when I think about AI in teams. One of them is just how do you improve the core user experience, and you want to write a message. How do we give you AI-assisted capabilities so that you can write a better message? How do we improve notifications? How do we give you better information where you need it? So this is not agentic AI or anything like that. Is just AI which is helping the product improve. So that's like the first bucket. The second bucket is something that we all love and use, is things like Meeting Copilot, right? So you have Copilot in meetings. It's your personal assistant. It's your personal, it's your personal Copilot that helps you summarize things. It helps you understand what's happening in a meeting and so on. So that's
actually interesting. You mentioned that Meeting Copilot. How many people in the room? Can you stick your hands up if you have Copilot enabled today?
Yeah, wow.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I didn't want to assume. It's relatively safe to assume that you've seen and used it. I didn't want to assume.
Thanks for doing that. Yeah. So that's the second sort of bucket where it's like you're using one of the modes in Teams, and how to use AI to just make you much more effective and productive. And then the third one is again sticking to the same theme. We are launching new agents in Teams, starting with Facilitator, which again some of you might have seen, which helps you run more effective meetings. Now, that's not your personal Copilot, but it is available for the group to do things together. And Teams is a collaboration app, right? So it's not a single-player mode. Right? You don't go to Teams and just talk to yourself. I mean, some people do that. I do that. But there's a way to do that. But most of the times, you're talking to other people.
I have never hidden at work by turning on the Meet Now button, so it shows that I'm in a meeting.
Don't share all your tips and tricks here. So we are doing that. Like, how do we go from a single player to a multiplayer kind of mode where we can help groups of people do things together? So that's kind of the third bucket. And the fourth and final bucket, in my view, is around our platform. So we have a very robust third-party platform where anybody can build an app or an agent and bring that into teams. Those are AI enabled as well, so they are smarter. They can help you do workflows, all of those things. And some of them are built by third-party vendors. Some of them are built by your own line of business applications. So we have AI kind of across these these areas is how we look at our investments from my perspective. And very quickly, I'll answer the second part that you asked, how are the PMs using AI? So look, it's a very interesting time in the industry because almost everybody who is working in the tech industry to start with, they have access to incredible tools available for you to just, take something from an idea to implementation or a prototype as fast as possible. There was a time where it used to require a lot of time and effort to write down a specification and put that in front of, work with engineers and designers and other folks as well and put something in the market. Now, with all the tools that are available, the AI tools that are available, you basically can just work with them as your collaborator and then come to a much better outcome and sharpen your thinking, sharpen your prototypes, and so on. So the PMs, just using them as an example, a lot of them are doing that. They're prototyping. They're using AI for a lot of customer research. There's so much signal coming in. How do you make sense of the signal? How do you, remove the noise and pick it up? So yeah, it's a very exciting time that way.
Awesome. Now, sticking with AI and coming back to you, Sumi, I'm interested in, we've talked about the end user, we talked about the PM discipline. How do you see sort of AI evolving our engineering systems?
Oh, that's one of the pieces we are all extremely, extremely excited about, right? What AI is doing and can do, transform developer productivity. So obviously the obvious ones are using AI as a coding assistant.
Because you've had it for a lot, GitHub Copilot was the first one out of the gate.
It was the first one out of the block, right? Yeah, and it's not just about having an AI assistant to kind of generate code, but it's about reducing that developer toil, right? Like in the large code bases that we work in, it's not just about writing a new feature. Many a time it is about doing very mundane tasks, whether it's about upgrading libraries or doing these very complex tasks, figuring out memory leaks and going. And we have these amazing examples of how some of the coding assistants, whether it's GitHub Copilot or even things that we've built internally, have just reduced the amount of time from like days and days and days to like minutes. And that's been extremely encouraging. We also kind of touched upon the platform and how we are able to build agents. We leverage the same platform to build our own internal agents. So we've built agents for our developer workflows to nudge our PRs along, or to kind of when there are build breaks in the system, in the outer loop, inner loop, kind of like get on it right away, figure out what went wrong, figure out what were the check-ins that went, and zero in on a fix, let the developer know, all in the matter of minutes. And that just speeds up our velocity so much in terms of how fast we can make fixes. We can get it out to customers, and that entire loop, right? And then the third part of that is how we are using AI again to both detect, we call this our shift left effort, which is catch as many bugs from signals as early as possible, right?
What do you mean there are bugs?
As long as humans, there are bugs. If it's AI, it's just hallucinations. But yes, so moving it as far left as possible, using AI for that, but also just using AI to sift through the vast volume of customer feedback, being able to analyze that really quickly, the sentiment effectively, and routing it. I mean, again, we are a large team of thousands of engineers. Getting an issue to the right person itself takes a lot of time, but now with AI, we're able to do that so fast. And with some of our coding assistants, they're able to fix it. So it's almost like we are speeding up that loop so fast.
Totally, and I do want to give, I'm sort of corporate Switzerland here because, I don't work on the Teams team or even on Jeff's team, but I can attest as a customer, how responsive, folks are, and I've seen it, and this is a Viva Engage example. The Viva Engage team have been building in features that I've been requesting from a communication standpoint for AMAs and things like that. So like I do see it in action. Like you do walk the walk there.
Yeah.
And I wanted to spend a moment, and Mark, I had a question for you. We've talked about, again, this sort of breadth. Manik, you were talking about multiplayer, the single-person co-pilot. We've talked about agents. There's first-party stuff from Microsoft. There's third-party stuff coming in. Like, it, at a certain point, could get really confusing really quickly. And so how do you think about, like, helping end users and people consume this AI capability coming into Teams?
Yeah, it's an interesting comment in the sense of if you go back to talking about features and innovation, like we have to earn the right to be able to create features and add innovation into Teams by building a product that is secure, it's fast, it's reliable. And it's the same with AI. Like before we can really start to innovate in the AI space, we have to build trust, transparency, and we call it human in the loop, where everything that we do, we have to be clear with the data that's being used, what this agent has access to, how it can communicate, and making sure that the human has that control. And so that's basically the foundation of, and then on top of that, there's already a proliferation of meetings, and like, are we going to see a proliferation of agents? And I think, again, like, making sure the value's there, like, we see that with meeting notes, and one of the beauties of the meeting notes, and Monik touched on a bit of the capabilities, is it takes away a job that I have to do that enables me to be more engaged with the meeting. And so looking for those opportunities where AI has the right to be in that space, and it's an enabler, it's building upon an existing workflow, or it's taking a job that already exists. And so then that should hopefully limit, like, we're not just going to build things for the sake of things. It is actually going to be something that's a superpower to the workforce.
I get that from a co-pilot perspective in terms of, like, I've seen that, and I think calling it co-pilot was kind of genius in terms of it's not autopilot, it's a co-pilot. The human is still in the loop. How do you balance, so I get that side of the scale. When we're talking about agents with increasingly autonomous agents, like, how do you build that trust in?
Again, it's setting the guardrails for like what this agent can do. And if it's just for me, then the level of risk is you can be a little bit higher because it's only a one-to-one. But as Monik said, as soon as you put that in a group context, you want to be able to have that control. And so it doesn't expose something that the group doesn't have access to, but I have access to. Or I don't want it to represent me in a way that isn't actually true to what I say. Or even I don't want it to call out something that Lan said, which Lan didn't actually say. And so, again, it comes down to like just starting off with trust, building that transparency, and starting slow, and so people get used to it. And I think over the next 6 months, people will get more confident where they do see agents as a teammate. Right now, it's a new area. Like, I could add someone to a group chat, and I have that confidence that person's going to behave in a certain way because I know them. I've built up that trust. I built up that relationship. and the same thing has to happen with agents. Like, as we start seeing agents as kind of equals and a teammate, you have to build up that trust, that you have that confidence that it can work autonomously, or you have the guardrails that gives me the safety net that I can kind of pull the plug.
I was just going to add, and I think Lan says this a lot of times, right? A lot of these things, we have good thoughts, we have ideas, we think we have guardrails, but we actually don't know what we don't know. And for a lot of these things, we just have to try it out and test it out with a very small group of people, right? Because we are now going into agents behaving as humans, humans interacting with agents, and those are new norms that are being set up that honestly, without testing it out, like I know with Facilitator, we have tested out so many different things. You just got to learn. So part of this whole thing is also, how do you accelerate that learning loop? And of course, that requires us to,
It's funny, I asked that question because it's funny, with Mark and colleagues in design, I get to see some of the iterations, and like it's almost seeing the working of like working through some of these problems of like how do you delineate between an AI acting autonomously versus in sync, like it's a fascinating set of challenges. Lan, I had a question for you in terms of from your product area, again, sticking with sort of the AI theme, or like where are we headed, and what can we expect from calling meeting devices, that sort of area and the AI transformation?
Yeah, I sat here, every day I feel like the world is my oyster, because there's so many things you could do with it. I think the kind of touching on what you were asking, if you use an example, I think a lot of people will resonate. If you want to build a self-driving car, you probably wouldn't start with FSD. You would start with, first your car needs to have an airbag, and you probably would have cruise control, and you build some trust with the user, and then you have different levels of FSD, and ultimately you get, your full robotaxi, right? And so our journey with agent is a lot like this. There's user acceptance level, and there's also just different levels of problems that you have to target. So how do you pick the right use case to start? And I think that's everything, right? Our dream of facilitator is, today humans are just not very good at multitasking. There are three things we're trying to solve with meetings that it's been my dream for 10 years now. One, we're not very good at multitasking. Humans as a species, when you listen to someone talk, you can't multitasking and trying to capture notes and read the rooms and understand emotion. It's very stressful. That's why meeting is hard. Two, we just have very short memory. If you have a meeting that you talked about stuff last meeting, this meeting you will forget about it if it's a month later. So short-term memory, that's our limitation. Biological, we're carbon intelligence, right? And there was a third thing. Oh, the third thing is, our knowledge are limited, right? A lot of time meeting is hard because someone starts to talk about something that you don't understand, with acronyms, or what do you have a new concept or something that, the insiders know and you don't know about it, or some expertise that you don't have, and that creates barrier in communication, in meeting, in collaboration, in decision making. So these are the three problems that I think AI uniquely presents an opportunity to help us in real-time collaboration experience like meeting. I want the facilitator to be able to help you, take all these chores from you, because we're just not good at multitasking, but AI doesn't have this problem. It can take notes, it can keep track of time, it can remember the agenda, it can do all these things without blinking an eye. And so that's kind of number one. The second thing is it could be a really good knowledge broker for you. If you don't know something, AI should be able to get it for you, put it at your fingertip when you need it, in the context. Now you can do much faster level set, knowledge context level set, that helps you make decisions faster, connect the dots faster. And then, what was the third thing I mentioned? Knowledge broker, short-term memory, right? AI should be able to, this is my short-term memory moment. Not very good, I said 5 seconds ago. I want,
and you're relying on a human co-pilot here, which is not as
totally
not
running out of my carbon intelligence now. But anyway, so I want the AI to be able to remember all the things, and then when we Rajesh has lots of these ROB meetings where we talk about decisions that he made, and everybody will, what did we talk about last time? How did we make that decision? You know what? AI can help you remember those things, recall those contexts when you need it, right? So all these things, right? And I think there's just huge potential. That's why I'm very excited about this, because I think if we do this right, we can make collaboration so much better, so much more effective. But we have to start with the airbag. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you have to start with something. The agent has to start with something that people feel like, okay, like you're not going to crash. You know, like if there's a crash, I can still rely on the airbag, right? So that's kind of the balance we're trying to figure out. How do we get started so that you start with something airbag that's predictable, people understand it's safe, it's useful, and then you can grow from there. Even if you have some hallucination, you pick the right use case. So, even if humans are still a little bit in the loop, but it kind of grows with you.
I have a question that I'll ask you in a second, but before I do that, Margot, do you want to stick your hand up? We've got about 15 minutes left, so if you've got questions in the audience, Margot's got a handheld mic, and so she can pop over, and I want to give you all a chance to ask questions as well. So stick your hand up, get Margot too. We've got one over here. As we're coming over, I was interested in whether you've seen a big uptick in the amount of meeting recordings. Is it becoming the norm?
Yeah. We saw, I actually know this number, despite my short-term memory. 3x more meetings. So for our Copilot and Teams Premium users who comes with the intelligence feature, there's 3 times more recording and transcription use.
It's funny. I think it was it BlackRock who's the company that for the longest time, the default has just been they've been doing this.
Most companies don't do transcription.
5 years ago, I didn't get it. And now, we're talking about Rajesh, basically every meeting I'm in with Rajesh, I record it so that I can go back and remind myself, what he signed me up to do.
Yeah, our chief of staff is starting to forget about taking notes and more, which is great.
Yeah, interesting. All right. Could you introduce yourself? Who are you?
Yeah,
where do you work?
Hi, I'm Lori. I'm with Mayor Brown. My question is actually not about AI. Are there any plans to make more of the Teams windows pop out the way chats do? Because what happens to me, and this happens all the time, every day, I will be trying to reply to someone in a Teams channel, but I have to reference a conversation that happened in another team. And now Teams is not a single pane of glass, because I don't want to lose my place. So now I'm opening a browser window with Teams, and then I'm opening another browser window to open the file. Are there any plans, or is AI just the bottom line, and I need to implement AI and tell AI to go find it?
I'll start, and then maybe similar to what I said around innovation. We have to earn the right, and we can't forget the core experience. And so we are going to finding that balance between core capabilities and advanced AI capabilities. And what you're talking about is a pain point that we hear from customers a lot.
Honestly, this has been a pain point for me for 6 years.
And there's, yes, and I totally empathize with you, because it's something that I feel...
Thank you for bearing.
Yeah, it's something that I feel daily as well. And there's 2 things that we are working on that will fix this. One is obviously pop-out windows. We have it in chat. There's a lot of context switching where you have to copy and paste stuff in. We hear that, and that's something that we're looking at for channels. It's something we're looking at in meetings, because even in meetings, sometimes you want to see the content in one window, you want to see the chat in another window. And then the other thing around just those pop-out windows was what you'll see is every time you do it, it opens up in a different space, and we don't remember where you keep those windows. And so we want to have better window management. We have this experience called Windows, where we feel like maybe we could do something that helps out the scenario. And then actually the third thing is, even if you don't need to pop out something, say for example you're looking at a file that's 2 levels down in OneDrive in Teams, and then you go over to chat to respond to a message. If you come back to OneDrive, it takes you back up to the top level, and it doesn't remember your state within that view. So there's a lot of window management, state management that's going to be coming to Teams and to help you out. And I empathize with your frustration, because I feel it daily as well.
All right, thank you. Good. I think we've got another one right here as well.
Hi, I'm Mary Jo Adams with Navient, formerly Sally Mae. Very interesting conversation, by the way, thank you. One of my questions is...
One of. You're in for it.
Well, I had 2, but I'm going to ask the selfish one. I'm struggling to get adoption of the group chat. Everyone wants to just create on-the-fly chats with 20 people, add a 21st, and then I'll start all over again for 24. And
I see a lot of people nodding.
Yeah, and I'm desperate. I today was like, look, I'll offer you guys a $25 gift card if you'll just give me 2 weeks in a channel chat. And if you still hate it, we can leave it. Any tips? How do you guys sell it?
Yeah, so I missed this, the middle part. So you're saying lots of group chats, and every time when people want to start something, they start a new group chat. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I want to do the channel chat.
Yeah.
Red, but just, I'm getting.
Yeah, so this is again, I'll use Mark's words. We are very empathetic to this problem because we face this every day ourselves, right? Yeah, so we haven't, so let me come at it two ways. One is we just recently GA'd a new experience where you have chats and channels in a combined view, right? So that's step one. Yeah, that's step one. That does not solve the problem that you're saying, but it gets us closer so that people can organize it in a way which works for them in their workflow. At the same time, we are going to make a lot of investments in our channels to make them much more, bring a lot more chat-like capabilities into channels, right? So that's what we're working on. In particular, we are already in private preview for threaded conversations in channels. So that's one of the ways in which you'll have the ability to be in a channel and not use a post-reply kind of model that we have today, but you can have a chat conversation, but you can have a conversation that's threaded, so people can have a bunch of topics, and then they can have a side panel in which they can have all the conversations there. So these are all the investments we are making, because at the end of the day, a lot of group chats on one particular topic is not a good solution for collaboration at all, and we do want channels to be the right place for that because it has all the grounding, it has the information, it has the files, all of that. But we have not really shown up with a lot of good sort of these kind of features there yet, and that's the roadmap that we're working on right now. So we hear you, it's coming, it's a huge priority for us, and that's what we're going for.
Well, I like it. I'm just trying to get others to hear.
Yeah, the other thing to build on what Monica's been saying is conversations are very messy and they're very dynamic and very fluid, where we might start off in one-on-one chats, that then escalates to a group chat, and then that group chat's now, oh, this is a real topic, this is a real project, how do we then escalate that to a channel? Oh, and now we're in this channel and we want to bring in another team, how do we, and right now there's a lot of boxes that that don't fluidly navigate from one to the next, and so we're really looking at bringing the users along from that very simple one-on-one chat all the way to a very complex, very busy, very active channel, and make sure that our infrastructure supports how humans communicate. And you don't have to define that up front. Like if you decide, 2 months later, oh, this should have been a channel or this should have been a group chat, we want you to be able to move backwards and forwards between those in a lot more of a fluid state than you can do today. I think right now you have to start from scratch again, which, yes.
I think that fluidity is really interesting because take this conference as an example. 3 or 4 months ago, it was only a few of us who were working on it, and then it sort of scales up to a lot of people, and then, next week it can probably go back down to a, smaller number of people. Okay, I'm mindful of time. Yeah.
So I was having a conversation with somebody, I think earlier today, and they were talking about email going into Teams, and it was an idea that I hadn't thought of, but I know that talking with other, with Microsoft in general, you always say, oh, Teams is a hub. Teams is your working hub. Do you think is that a logical or something that could be done, is to bring in Exchange or Outlook into a Teams pane and not have it be clunky?
I'm fascinated by who's going to answer this question. I don't know who wants to take this one.
I'll start. I think you will hear from all of my colleagues here on this one. So look, the way we think about Teams, you're right. It is the hub for collaboration. And there is an aspect of real timeliness to it and fluidity. I really like what Mark said earlier about the fluidity of different modes of communication and how the communication paradigm evolves, starting one-on-one and goes all the way to collaboration scenarios with groups and large groups and meetings and so on. So that's the user job that we support in Teams primarily. Now, email has its own place, for sure. And email has been around for many years. So many people have tried to disrupt email and kind of, all go back to the same protocol of email, which is the way it works today. So we have done work to bring email into Teams in terms of the integration between Outlook and Teams. So you can, for instance, and this is launched already, which is you can take an Outlook email and you can forward it to Teams if you want to continue the conversation with that as the context. So you
reply all with I am.
Pardon me?
Reply all in Outlook.
Yeah,
I am.
yeah, exactly. So you will see us continue to do that, but there are no plans that we have right now of supporting like all of email in Teams, because we feel like Teams has a specific user job, which is around real-time communication, and that's what we are focused on.
Oh, that's a good answer. So as we're sort of beginning to come to a close, there was a question that I kind of wanted to ask all of you, and it's sort of a challenge that I think as product leaders that you're going to be faced with. And so Manik, we'll start with you, maybe sort of come back down the line. Rajesh, he's kind of funny. He sometimes jokes with our leadership team. It's like, I went to our executive briefing center yesterday and I met with X customer. And in the morning they told me we were moving too fast. And in the afternoon they told me that we were moving too slowly. So there's this sort of inherent tension between sort of the innovation and bringing, tools to market, but then also scaling, doing it with trust, building in the compliance controls. So like, how do you balance that?
Yeah, it's a tough balance because, and I think it gets harder and harder as the product scales, because, echoing what folks were saying earlier, we're also serving so many different users with different diverse needs. So you kind of have to take a systematic view to it, right? How do you think about the build system, if you will? And I feel like, and this is where, if you folks have feedback, you should give us, after this conference and so on. But essentially, a lot of our work is working together with customers, doing things in a very methodical way. So if we come up with new innovation, we are just not going to launch it. We will have pilots, we will have a private preview, we'll have a public preview, then we will go GA. That gives us a lot of time to bake it into the thing. And it's not that we have all the ideas ourselves. Let's be clear. A lot of times the customers have very good ideas. So we want to make sure that we listen to that feedback and kind of connect that to the way we are building our product. And when we do that, we try our best to do this in a way where all the releases we do it on a certain cadence. We are very methodical about it. We publish all the information in all kinds of channels available to us externally in our admin tools and so on and so forth. So it's not, I don't think there's a perfect solve for it, but our goal always is to do it in a way that doesn't surprise customers. Because if you start doing that, then you start losing that trust that I was talking about. So you have to be very transparent, but at the same time, let's be clear. The pace of change is immense right now in the industry.
Yeah, so we would be doing a disservice if we weren't keeping up.
If we were not waking up every day and thinking of ideas to innovate and bring AI and all those aspects and teams and all the questions that you folks were asking, then we are failing you in a way, because we really have to catch that next wave and make sure that we are bringing the best thinking and best product in front of you and do that in a methodical way that resonates with you. So that's kind of the balance that we need to look at.
So just to build on what Monik's been saying is, being just aware of how much disruption the change is going to bring to the customer is really like where we start from, where if I was to add a new emoji to Teams, probably no one would notice it. While the feature that Monik just talked about around bringing chats and channels together, we knew this was going to change behavior. It's going to be a significant change.
Human beings love change.
And so we have various rings of progression within our own organization where, just as a product team, we can test stuff. And we even see internally as we go from the Teams team to all of Microsoft, on day one, when we release it to all of Microsoft, whether my inbox goes from 1 to 2,000, that's a really strong signal of okay, this is going to be super disruptive for our customers. And so we've kind of got built-in systems in place internally. So before it even gets to the customers, we know that signal of how disruptive it is, how disruptive it is, how much do we need to bring our customers along. And so I feel that AI is probably going to throw that all upside down, and so that's something we're going to have to continue to watch for.
It is a tricky balance, as both of these folks have said, but I think a lot of it also comes down to risk tolerance and risk aversion to the customers, and there are specific segments that are just more risk tolerant, and there are specific ones that are risk averse.
But we have to serve both.
And we have to serve both. So how do you build things? So it again goes back to how we build features. How do we build features with the customizations and the right knobs and controls that we can control the rollout, and we can segment and target certain parts of the population, right? And we have those systems, right, with some of our flighting and experimentation. We have those systems where we do a much better job of targeting these. And
monthly enterprise channel, the semi-annual channel.
yeah, and more than that, right? So those are just the bills, but even at a feature level, we are able to control it. So that's definitely one of those things. But the second one, sometimes the reason customers complain that we are going too fast is because we are causing them disruption. We're actually not doing it right. And the thing that we have to dig into and understand is what is it that we are breaking? Are we not doing it in a seamless manner? Are we doing it in a way that breaks a workflow of this? And then we've got to go fix that, right? I mean, no one's going to complain if it is all seamless, if it's all under the hood. You get the most secure bits because let's face it, it's for AI, it's for the security landscape that we are in. We need to make sure that our product is always up to date and running with the most secure fixes in there, right? So this is not something that's going to go away.
No,
so,
it's an inherent tension.
It's an inherent tension. So how do we do it in a way that causes the least disruption? And we are always learning and fixing and trying to do a better job.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's all of those things taken together. I think that's why when you run something at planet scale with such diverse users, you just have to think of these things.
Oh, I would just close. I mean, those guys really covered everything. I mean, a motto I had for our team is to move fast and don't break things. You know, we're in this business. You know, we want to move fast, but we don't want to break things. If we can't accomplish that, then you as a customer, why would you complain, right? Because in the end of the day, like, you know, you also, I think all the business aspire to move at faster speed. The really worry is, can I bring my customer, can I bring my user along? Can I, you know, not cause disruption to our business? So you kind of need to start with that belief that it is possible. It's not a zero-sum thing. It's not an either or. Our boss' favorite word is it's an and, not an or.
Yes,
so
and.
Yes, it's an and, right? So if you start from that belief system, then I think you'll find a way. There's lots of ways. I mean, COVID proved that not just Microsoft, you know, the entire world, they can transform in a matter of months because
I think
you have this belief. This is what needs to happen, and it happened.
Well, I think that's a perfect place to finish on. I think an IT admin motto, move fast and don't break things. Thank you all for the conversation. I appreciate it.